If you're an E36 fan like me, you probably have heard of the name Rally Road come up at some point at some time. And it's because they make some awesome stuff. I just picked up this Rally Road dual fuel pump hat system. It already has 2 plugs on it. It's super high quality. This must be like anodized aluminum, and it's got the Rally Road emblem on it. It even has the wires for your fuel gauge, which we'll have to hook up the fuel gauge to this and do some custom work there. I'll show you guys how to do that. Having a dual fuel pump in my E36 is gonna allow me to run full E85. Currently with my E36 Turbo LS swap, I have it on ethanol, but over 50% ethanol right now with a single Walbro 525 fuel pump. It's just not cutting it. Now, whether you have a Turbo LS or M50 or S50, this thing is gonna still work because it's designed specifically for the E36. So if you look on the bracket here, there's a hole here and a hole there. This is for your gas gauge. Now, if I go over to the original sending unit that I have, and I have another one in the car right now. This is an extra one that I had, my original one. This looks like it would pop out. I'll snip these off and then I can attach it directly to here. And that's gonna bring this fuel gauge sending unit directly into the new one. With a screwdriver, I just popped this piece out here and slid that down and this thing comes off. Now I'm gonna cut these 2 here and then I'll reattach it once we connect it up to it. There, got it off. Let's attach this to our other unit. You're watching. So as you can see, pop it in here, that, slide it up, and then slide this over and clicks in. So that's our fuel sending unit, just as it was from the old one, but now it's on our nice shiny new one. Next, we're gonna do the fuel pump hanger. So this actually comes with the hardware. I'm just gonna do one for now by unscrewing it here, just like that. And the fuel pump slides up and through. And this is a Walbro 525. Okay, depending on your E36, you may have different style returns. My E36 is a OBD1, since it's a 1994. I have a return that goes to both driver side sending units and passenger side. So I'm gonna have to use this port here that originally came blocked off with this to function as my return, and then it comes down straight down here. What I did was I got a couple of AN fittings that can go here, which I'll show you that one. And then I'll show you the bottom one first. -8 ORB to -6, and then a -6 female to, I think this is 3/8 is where we'll have. So I'm just gonna thread this in here and this will function for our return. If you look at the original one, the original return comes in here, but it goes all the way down the side of this tube and comes down here and feeds right back into the tank. So I kind of want to replicate the length of that. So I probably have a tube come down to about here, and that should be out, and I'll try to make it so it's out of the way of the pumps. So I might not put that tube on until last, but that it's also out of the way of everything else. So once that's on, I can start wiring up my fuel sending unit, and I'll put this on the front and show you what that looks like. So this here is very low profile, so it still should work pretty well fitting it in, and that's gonna function as my return. I'm not gonna tighten everything down totally just yet, but just so you can kind of see what we're working with here. And then once that's on, 1/2" barb fitting will thread onto this. Ooh, it's tight.
That's what she said.
I might have to put that on first and then kind of see where it goes. So let me do that first. It's a good thing we don't tighten everything down all the way. So I actually had to thread this on first. Once that's on completely, it'll stick around, but it's very close to the edge. So I wouldn't actually be able to tighten it down once it's on. So that's there. So now we have our feed coming out, and then this is going to be our return, based off of our original return. I already have a -8 fitting coming out of my existing fuel pump, so it's just gonna be a quick connection there for us. Okay, so next up, I've separated obviously positive and negative to the main pump, and I'm gonna label them too, that way if I'm ever like stuck somewhere, I can always swap them out. And I'm also gonna attach some pigtails to it, because if it's hardwired into the car, 2 things will suck. It'll suck taking it in and out once it's in there, and 2, if I ever like get stuck or stranded where my main fuel pump dies, I could unplug my main pump and plug in my backup, and that'll at least get me home if something happens. So that's a good fail-safe to have. So I'm gonna wire up 2 identical plugs, that way they could go back and forth and be swapped out. And then I have a smaller pigtail that I'm gonna use for the gas gauge for these 2 wires here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, so all 3 pigtails are wired up. I just put a little red zip tie so I know that this is the primary pump, and then I'll just wiggle it to know which one is the primary one down there to plug it in. They're both Walbro 525s. It's not like if I mess one up, I'm not gonna have enough pump until the second one turns on, just so I know for me. Obviously I did it off camera, but just so I showed you guys what I do. This is all 14 gauge wire, even this. So I used blue, crimp, and shrink wrap, and then just a black shrink wrap on top of it. And I did the same thing down here. This is the gas gauge wires. These are the only ones you have to do in tank. These are already done for you. And I don't know if I said it before, but don't use solder connectors in a fuel tank. You want to use crimp only and then shrink wrap, because the solder connectors, if they do get wet with gasoline, will eventually corrode and fall apart. You want to use crimp only. So next up, I'm going to install the secondary fuel pump. Now this actually clips down like this inside of your fuel tank, and when it's in there, I'll show you what it looks like. The fuel pump sits in 2 different positions, the front one and the back. So the back one only sits 2 inches. So when I thread this through, so it's got to be 2 inches from the top of this to that right there. I don't know if you can see. So it's got to be 2 inches. So I'm gonna try to orient the fuel pump that way. There's our 2 inches, and there's our first one. The second pump, which is already in the car, which I'll have to do when I open up the tank, that one will sit 3 inches down from the top. So that will look more like this. And the reason it does that is because in the tank, it's gonna sit like this as it mounts in there. So you want this one down further. Then this actually goes in first. I can take these off. This actually goes in, and there's these Allen keys that will be used to tighten it up on the inside. And then this will actually go right down onto it, and these 2 bolts will bolt onto it when it's in the tank. Now this is obviously separate from this, but the kit comes with a hose that plugs into this one and this one. And then this hose will run up into our feed out for us. It's a really great design. I like that a lot. It'll make it a lot easier to service the hat without taking out the pumps. So I want it oriented like that. That way I can mount the sock like that. Okay, so now that both pumps are on, one 2 inches from here to here, and this one 3 inches from here to here, it can sit in the tank. The next thing is we have to take this off and put this purple piece in. I'll show you how to do that now. I highly suggest draining your fuel tank to do this. I use a siphon. That's the best way to do it. This goes in like so, right? And the original instructions call for it to be 1.3 inches or 33 millimeters away from the return piece that's here. But it's actually a little bit bigger for me. 1.3 inches away from this. But I'll show you in the instructions. I have a different setup because I have an earlier car. So it's really going to be further away. So I'm probably going to have to eyeball this to see how it fits and fits in properly. This gets tightened in with those Allen keys once it's secure. It says you only need 2 of them to secure it. I'm going to just put 4 in, and I'm going to measure a little bit more than 1.3 inches here. Probably going to be like that. Now, obviously, it's hard to stick a ruler in there, so I took a piece of sandpaper, just a piece of something, just so I could get a feel for how long that is. So I measured this width is 1.3 inches, so even that is still not enough. We have to move a little more. So as you can see here, that is my piece of tape is 1.3 inches, and I left a little bit of extra space because in the original designs that they have in the instructions, there's a space right here for the original return, but my return actually comes from here. Now I'm gonna tighten that down and drop the pumps in. All right, so this is what it looks like. There's our plugs already on there and the 2 feeding into 1 going up. So this just drops right in, and the 2 screws we're gonna screw onto those 2 holes there. I'm gonna try to drop it in to show you. Comes with the 2 screws that were already there. Put it right back on. So give me a second to screw that down. A lot of stuff in the way, but that's what it looks like in. So now what's great about this is all you have to do is connect the 2 plugs and this here to the top of the hat, and you're good. So you just got to tuck some things in there, but it should fit. After some finagling, it was hard to do on camera. It would have taken me forever to show you guys on camera, so I just did it off camera, sorry. I was able to get it in. It's got some play to turn, but it's all in there now. I might turn this a little bit to line it up to get the AN fitting on properly, and then I might have to do some finagling with that. Gonna put the cap on it, tighten everything down, and then I get working on the wiring. I may do that in a separate video because this one's probably taking a while, and I kind of want to be thorough with this. So these wires can go up and down too. You can also tighten them as well once you get the selected length. So I dropped them down to connect them, then I pulled them out a little bit to give me some slack, and then I just tighten it up there, and then it'll keep the wires secure. It's a really cool fastener that they got there. So let me just connect this up and I'll show you the finished product. Okay, so there it looks all tied in. I got my return going in here, dropping down in tank. My dash 8 PTFE feed for my my 2 pumps going in there now. All these on here. All right, so now that this pump is installed, my E36 is gonna be able to handle a lot of more power, baby, so I'm really excited about that. Make sure you guys stick around because I'm gonna be doing some more videos on wiring up the pump and everything else like that, so stay tuned and check out these videos if you haven't seen them already.